Hi, welcome back to Life with Hospice. In the previous video, we talked about what is hospice and what services do they offer. So I just wanted to continue on with that and kind of do a short little recap of what we kind of did in the first video. We talked about kind of what was hospice. The fact that it allows you to live on your terms, it prioritizes comfort and quality of life over pain and suffering. That's kind of hospice all in a nutshell. Now, we also talked about the team members that surround the patient and family, and that would include the hospice doctor, whether it be one chosen that was a primary care physician or the hospice medical director. It can be either one. We've talked about the nurses, the social workers, the chaplains, the aides. We talked about volunteers, massage therapists, music therapy, pet therapy, just all those hospice team members that surround the family and patient, and kind of a little bit about how many times a week they go, all of that. Well, now I kind of want to talk about how would it be, the services that they offer. If someone were on hospice, how would that process go? Well, first of all, I want to start I am a nurse, but I wanted to start with the nursing support. That nursing support is 24/7 when you are on hospice. It's not just 8:30 to 5, whereas the main nurses work from 8:30 to 5, but there's also nursing staff in through the night all the way 24/7 through the weekend. Never is a hospice patient without nursing support. What happens if a patient is in need of any kind of service? Whether it be for comfort issues, patients not doing well, family needs support right then and there, they call and a nurse comes out to the home. Sometimes the triage nurse over the phone can kind of help the family manage the issue at that time, but sometimes a nurse has to go out to the home. So that can happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to call 911, get shipped to the hospital, all of that. A nurse can come out to you and kind of deal with whatever's happened at that moment and try to get that patient managed. While a patient is on hospice, every 2 weeks, there'll be a meeting between the doctor and the hospice team. And that usually includes the nurse, social worker, and chaplain. Sometimes the aides can go to these meetings as well. And what they do is they discuss the patient and the family as a whole, what the needs are, if there's any needs that need to be changed, whether it be medications, just issues with the plan of care. All of that can be discussed in that meeting. It's kind of like if somebody were to be in the hospital, there would be rounds where the physician comes through with the medical staff. They kind of discuss the patient and any changes that need to be made. It's the same thing in hospice. That's what that meeting every 2 weeks about the patient is. For a patient to be in hospice care, there's certain criteria that have to be met. One of the criteria is life expectancy. If a person put on hospice, their life expectancy is to be no more than 6 months if their disease process follows the normal course. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that a hospice patient cannot continue to be on hospice past 6 months, but it does mean that criteria has to be looked at constantly. And in that first 6 months, after the first 3 months, so right in the middle, they are looked at again. They look at decline. They look to see if that patient is continually moving in the direction of passing away. It's all part of that process that is put onto a hospice. So we have to kind of look at, is this person still hospice appropriate? There are times when people are no longer hospice appropriate and they need to be discharged from hospice. That happens all the time also. But we look at them after the first 3 months, look at them again after the next 3 months, and then after that, it's every 2 months that we have to continually look at that patient, see if there's any kind of decline in their status, in their physical status, and make a decision whether they are still appropriate for hospice. If they're not, then we will work with the family with getting that patient back to their primary care physician, and we're not just going to say, go, take care of yourself. We're going to make sure that hospices will make sure that the patient is set up to go back to their primary care physician and to continue things on the way that they want to. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was hospice levels of care. There are 4 hospice levels of care. They are routine home care, respite care, continuous care, or crisis care, it's called, or general inpatient. So I'll talk about each one of those and what each one of those is, and it's all different types of care for all different types of hospice patients and what's happening with them at that particular time. So first I'll start with routine home care. Routine home care is pretty much the main care that most hospice patients are in. When we say routine home care, it just means the care that is the type of care that a hospice patient is receiving in their home. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a house home. It could be a personal care home. It could be long-term care, meaning a nursing home, assisted living. Those types of places are their home. So that would be considered routine home care, where again, every kind of what we've discussed before, the nurses come in, the aides come in, all the care is being performed by the hospice team. Respite care is a service that can kind of help a family have some respite time away from the patient, because as time goes on and patients decline, taking care of that patient becomes more and more emotionally and physically taxing. And sometimes to be a great caregiver, you kind of need just a small break to kind of recharge your batteries so you can take good care of the patient when they return. Now, that service is 5 days where a patient can be put into the hospital, and the hospital will actually take care of the patient for that time. The hospice nurses will still come into the hospital and still continue to kind of do the same things that we did in the home, but it gives that family kind of a break just for a little bit so they can be, recharged when that patient comes back home. Usually when a patient goes into respite care, we can transport them. So if it's a patient, who's bedbound, can't move on their own, can't put them in a family car, they can be picked up by transport service and taken to the hospital and then taken back after those 5 days. So families can still go visit their loved ones while they're in respite care. Patient is being put into respite care. It's because that family needs to leave for whatever reason, whether it be like a family vacation or, something that's far away. So it's really needed that that patient is in the hospital. Continuous care or crisis care is another type of care that's offered, and that kind of care is in specific circumstances. If there is a patient who is having a lot of issues with symptom management, like they're having a lot of trouble breathing or having a lot of agitation or pain, needing pain control, and the family in the home is having trouble managing it with the medications, crisis care can be initiated. And that's where a nurse will come into the home continuously, where they can stay for 24 hours a day to help manage those symptoms. Sometimes the families are just so exhausted, they're having trouble keeping up on the medications and stuff when things get really bad, and that nurse can come in and help give those medications and get that patient back under control when it comes to agitation or pain or breathing. So it's a very great service. When the patient is managed, though, the crisis care nurse will then leave the home. And the last one is general inpatient. When a patient symptoms are completely unmanaged, we need IV pain medications, we need around-the-clock nursing staff, and continuous care is not available for whatever reason. Some hospices only have one crisis care nurse available. So if there's one patient already on crisis care and there's another patient that is in desperate need of symptom management, sometimes that patient has to be put into the hospital to try to help get their symptoms under control. So they will be put into the hospital. The hospice will still continue to manage the patient. They won't actually be giving the medications because the hospital staff will be doing that, but they will continue to manage the medications, what is being given, any changes will still go through the hospice doctor, and we will get that patient back under control. So those are the levels of care that are available when a patient is in hospice: routine home care, respite, continuous care or crisis care, and general inpatient. So now we've kind of talked about all of the services that hospices offer. We've talked about the hospice team, kind of how hospice would be running. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about, or if there's any other information that you really would like me to talk about, please email me at monique@lifewithhospice.com. We'll see you next time.